My husband woke me at 5 a.m. demanding $3 million to keep my intimate videos secret. As a federal prosecutor running for district attorney, any scandal would destroy everything I'd worked for. I only had $800,000 from my inheritance. I thought my life was over until my 85-year-old grandma with early-stage Alzheimer shuffled into the room and said, "Don't worry, dear. I'm already hunting him." The bedroom was still dark when David's voice cut through my sleep like a knife. I opened my eyes to see him standing over me, fully dressed with a packed suitcase at his feet. His laptop was open on the nightstand, and my stomach dropped when I saw what was on the screen. Videos of me. Intimate moments I thought were private. Multiple angles, professional quality, spanning months. "You have exactly 72 hours, Emily," David said, his voice eerily calm. $3 million, or these will be leaked online and sent to the defense attorneys on your murder case. Printed photos were scattered across the nightstand like playing cards, each one more compromising than the last. A typed note sat on top, with a 72-hour countdown and wire transfer instructions. "Check your house. There are cameras everywhere," he continued, closing the laptop with a soft click. "I know about the inheritance money from your parents. This is just business." My hands were shaking as I sat up. This wasn't the man I'd been living with for 8 months. This wasn't anger or jealousy or passion. This was cold, calculated, methodical. "I'm leaving for a work trip," David said, picking up his suitcase. "And by Monday morning, I want confirmation of the transfer. Don't test me, Emily. I have backups of everything. And don't bother informing the authorities. As a fail-safe, I have arranged that these photos and videos are uploaded if I am arrested." The door closed behind him, and I was alone with the photos. I spent the next 2 hours tearing my house apart, finding cameras everywhere. 15 of them. In the bedroom, bathroom, home office, even the kitchen. Professional installation, not some amateur setup. The footage dates went back 8 months. Our entire relationship had been recorded. My inheritance from my parents was exactly $800,000 in accessible accounts. My prosecutor's salary was $165,000 annually. The math was simple and devastating. I needed $2 million more in 72 hours, and I had no assets to liquidate quickly enough. But the money was just the beginning. I was prosecuting the biggest murder case of my career, with media coverage every single day. I'd announced my candidacy for district attorney 3 months ago. Any sex scandal would end everything I'd worked for. The defense could claim I was compromised, distracted. They could seek a dismissal. The trial resumed Monday morning, exactly 72 hours away. The DA election was in 6 months. Every newspaper and TV station in the state was watching my every move. I was trapped. By 7 a.m., I was in the kitchen frantically calling banks, lawyers, anyone who might help. That's when my 85-year-old grandma, Rose Carter, shuffled in wearing her faded pink robe and hearing aids. Rose had been living with me since Grandpa died 2 years ago. Early-stage Alzheimer's with sundown syndrome meant she was sharp in the mornings, but confused by evening. 30 years as an Army intelligence analyst before she retired, though most days she couldn't remember what she'd had for breakfast. "That nice man David," she said, settling into her chair with a cup of tea. "The one who's been taking so many work trips?" "Grandma, he's blackmailing me," I said, my voice breaking. "I need $3 million or—" "Oh, I know exactly what he's doing, dear," Rose interrupted calmly. "I've been documenting everything." I stopped dialing. "What?" She pointed to the kitchen wall where her old Army commendation photos hung. Below them was a small notebook I'd never noticed before, filled with precise handwritten observations. She was typing something on an ancient laptop with surprising focus. "Don't worry about that awful man," she said, not looking up from her screen. "I'm already hunting him." For the first time in hours, I felt something other than pure terror. My grandma with Alzheimer's was talking like she had a plan. And honestly, that was the most reassuring thing anyone had said to me all morning. Of course, a big part of me thought, what could an 85-year-old with memory problems possibly do against a criminal like David? But let me tell you something, I was so wrong about my grandma. While I was falling apart, making desperate phone calls to every lawyer and loan officer I could find, my grandma Rose was calmly following her morning routine. But there was something different about her today. She moved with purpose, like she was on a mission. "Emily, dear," she said, setting down her tea. "Have you noticed David's work trips always happen when women go missing in the news?" I stopped mid-dial. "What are you talking about?" 3 weeks ago, that doctor in Phoenix stopped posting on social media. David was there for client meetings. 2 months ago, the tech CEO in Seattle went quiet online. Another David business trip. My blood went cold. "Grandma, that's just a coincidence." "I've also noticed he photographs your mail," she continued. "Bank statements, legal documents. Always when he thinks you're not looking." His security consultant story doesn't match his schedule patterns either. "In the Army, we called this pattern analysis, dear." She opened her small notebook, and my jaw dropped. Pages of detailed timelines written in military shorthand I could barely read. David's absences cross-referenced with my vulnerable moments. After tough court days, when I was stressed, when I'd had wine. "Look here," Rose pointed to a section. "He always calls someone named Mitchell after your difficult cases. Never when you're having good days." "How do you know about Mitchell?" "I listen to his phone calls when he thinks I'm napping." At this point, I felt as if my grandma was speaking gibberish. None of what she said made sense. And I was genuinely worried that her mental health had gotten worse. Maybe this was some trauma response to her granddaughter being blackmailed. But her notebook showed months of observations. David's behavioral patterns, his stress responses, which were accurate, even notes about his girlfriend, Mitchell, who he'd mentioned in hushed conversations according to my grandma, Rose. "Emily, David isn't just blackmailing you. He's running 4 simultaneous operations." She flipped to another page covered in names and locations. My hands started shaking as I read. "You're victim number 4. Prosecutors are high-value targets because scandals destroy careers completely." Rose's voice was steady, analytical. "His timeline is 3 months to collect from all 4 victims, then retire to Europe with Mitchell." "How could you possibly know that?" 7 years of success made him overconfident. Greedy. He's taking too many risks at once. Rose explained that Mitchell Green believed David was a cybersecurity consultant. She'd helped him test client security systems, actually installing hidden cameras. She provided alibis for his business trips while he was managing other victims. And she was pressuring him about their promised European vacation. "That poor girl has no idea she's dating a predator," Rose said softly. I stared at my grandmother in shock. This wasn't early-stage Alzheimer's talking. This was a trained intelligence analyst using protocols she'd learned 30 years ago. "I've been documenting everything with military precision," she continued. "His micro-expressions, behavioral inconsistencies you missed, how his stress levels connect to his work emergencies. My memory might be failing, but my training isn't." Then she dropped the bombshell. "I found his other victims." Rose opened her laptop and showed me 4 profiles. "I've just recently confirmed. Dr. Lisa Thompson, a cardiologist in Phoenix, he's been blackmailing her for 4 months. Judge Patricia Hayes from Denver Family Court, 6 months. CEO Amanda Foster from a Seattle tech startup, 2 months. And me, Emily Carter, federal prosecutor." I used public records and social media cross-referencing. Notice how they all go quiet online during David's trips? Same pattern, different cities. My head was spinning. "Grandma, this is impossible." "How did you?" "I found his backup laptop hidden in the garage." "She what?" "Password psychology, dear. Birthdate combinations, anniversary dates. Basic intelligence work." Rose's fingers moved across the keyboard with surprising speed. I downloaded victim files, financial records, operational plans. David has a retirement timeline. She pulled up a travel booking confirmation. 2 tickets to Paris, departure date exactly 10 weeks away. He's planning to disappear with Mitchell and $12 million from all 4 victims combined. But here's what he doesn't know. Rose turned the screen toward me, and I saw folders labeled with each victim's name, containing detailed financial information, personal vulnerabilities, and timeline schedules. "I have copies of everything." Bank accounts, safe house locations, communication protocols. David thinks he's hunting alone, but now I'm hunting him. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a spark of hope. My 85-year-old grandma with Alzheimer's had just reverse-engineered an entire criminal operation. And she was just getting started. We need to call the FBI, I said, staring at the evidence on Rose's laptop. Already done, she replied calmly. I contacted your colleague Agent Daniel Harris from Financial Crimes this morning. I nearly choked on my coffee. You what? Emily, dear, you mentioned him at dinner last month. The case about cryptocurrency fraud? I looked him up. 20 minutes later, Agent Harris was sitting at my kitchen table, looking stunned as my grandmother presented evidence in a perfect intelligence briefing format. Agent Harris, we have a multi-state extortion operation with 4 active victims and a 10-week retirement timeline, Rose began, sliding documents across the table like she was still briefing Pentagon officials. I'm requesting urgent financial monitoring rather than immediate arrests to prevent suspect flight. Harris flipped through the files, his eyes widening. Mrs. Carter, how did you obtain this information? 30 years of intelligence analysis, Agent Harris. The subject became careless due to operational overconfidence. I watched my FBI colleague take notes as my grandmother systematically dismantled David's entire operation. She had bank account numbers, safe house addresses, victim profiles, and travel itineraries. The retirement timeline creates critical time pressure, Rose continued. Paris departure in 10 weeks. We need financial surveillance nets deployed immediately. I can place monitoring flags on these accounts, Harris said. Any large transactions will trigger alerts, and we can effectively freeze access within 48 hours. Perfect. Now we coordinate with the other victims. Before I could object, Rose was already dialing numbers. Dr. Thompson? This is Rose Carter, calling on behalf of federal prosecutor Emily Carter. I believe you're in danger from a man named David Morrison. I listened in shock as my grandmother explained David's operation to Dr. Lisa Thompson in Phoenix. Using my credentials to establish trust, she coordinated evidence sharing without compromising any ongoing investigations. Judge Hayes, we need to discuss Derek Masters and his blackmail operation. CEO Foster, I'm calling about David Morrison and 3 other victims. Within 2 hours, Rose had established secure communication with all 3 women. Each victim was terrified but desperate for help. More importantly, they were willing to coordinate simultaneous action. Now for the most delicate part, Rose said, hanging up from her 3rd call. What do you mean? We need to recruit Mitchell Green. Rose had found Mitchell's number in David's phone contacts. She called her, introducing herself as a concerned family member who'd discovered troubling information about David's activities. Mitchell, honey, I think David has been lying to you about his work, Rose said gently when Mitchell answered. Could we meet for coffee? I have some things to show you. 3 hours later, Mitchell Green was sitting in my living room, staring at printouts of David's victim files with tears streaming down her face. I helped him install those cameras, she whispered. He said it was security testing for clients. I thought I was helping with his cybersecurity business. You were manipulated, dear, and I hate to tell you this, you're also an unwilling accomplice. David could frame this as you being his partner to rope you in, Rose said softly. But now you can help us stop him. Mitchell sat quietly for a minute, taking it all in. I could see her shock turning into anger in real time. What do you need me to do? She asked. Access to his apartment, his real schedule, his behavioral patterns. Can you do that? Everything. I'll give you everything. While Rose coordinated with victims and recruited Mitchell, Agent Harris was building a financial surveillance net around David's operation. 7 bank accounts across 4 states, all flagged for monitoring. Any transaction over $10,000 will trigger an alert, Harris explained. We'll have 48 hours to process full asset seizure warrants, but in the meantime, his accounts become effectively frozen. Mitchell provided David's real schedule and location information. The other victims coordinated to preserve their blackmail evidence. Rose guided everyone through proper chain of custody procedures, ensuring everything would hold up in federal court. All communications are now monitored and documented, she announced. Phase 2 begins when David returns from his current trip. David returned home Saturday morning, before his deadline, expecting to find me desperate and ready to pay. Instead, I was sitting calmly at the kitchen table with Rose, looking completely relaxed. "You seem different," he said suspiciously, setting down his travel bag. "Just accepting the situation," I replied, following Rose's script exactly. But his real shock came when he went to Mitchell's apartment that evening. She wasn't there, but minutes after he let himself in with his spare key, his phone rang. "Who is Derek Masters?" Mitchell demanded. David's face went white. "Where did you get those?" he asked. "Who are Dr. Thompson, Judge Hayes, and CEO Foster? Why do you have intimate videos of them?" "Mitchell, I can explain how you've been using me to help you destroy women's lives." David tried to access his bank accounts that night to begin his escape plan. Every single account was frozen. He called the banks frantically, but the financial surveillance net had triggered. He didn't know how, but he had been compromised, and he needed to go underground. His other victims had stopped responding to his threats completely. Dr. Thompson, Judge Hayes, and CEO Foster maintained coordinated silence, following Rose's instructions. By Sunday morning, David called. "Something's wrong," he told me when he returned home. "My accounts are frozen, my other business contacts aren't responding." "That sounds stressful," I said calmly. His desperation peaked Sunday evening as his deadline approached. He called me at exactly 10 p.m., his voice shaking. "Emily, I'll provide you with an alternative account. I need that money transferred tonight. Not tomorrow morning, tonight." "I'm still working on it," I said, signaling Rose. "Working on it? You have 2 hours left." Agent Harris was recording everything from a van outside. Rose had coached me on exactly what questions to ask. "David, help me understand something. You mentioned defense attorneys on my murder case. How many other prosecutors are you doing this to? That's not your concern. And when you said you know about the inheritance money, how long have you been planning this?" Maybe it was panic or stress that made him sloppy. But he revealed too much with his next statement. "Look, I've been doing this for years, okay? You're not special. But you're my ticket to retirement, so transfer the fucking money." "Retirement? Are you planning to leave the country?" He kept quiet, maybe realizing he had revealed too much. Rose smiled and took the phone from my hand. "Hello, Derek Masters," she said calmly. "Staff Sergeant Rose Carter, Army Intelligence, retired." Dead silence on the other end. "I know about Dr. Thompson in Phoenix, Judge Hayes in Denver, and CEO Foster in Seattle. I know Mitchell Green has been helping you without knowing what you really do. I know about your European vacation." David's breathing was audible through the phone. "What you don't know," Rose continued, "is that I've been in contact with all of them. And Agent Daniel Harris from the FBI Financial Crimes Unit is very interested in your operation. You're just some old lady with dementia." David screamed. "Alzheimer's affects my short-term memory, son. My analytical training is permanent." Rose calmly began listing specific dates, amounts, and victim details while David hyperventilated on the other end. "The FBI already has everything they need, Derek. Your retirement plan just became a federal prosecution case." The line went quiet for a full 10 seconds. Then David's voice came back, shaky and desperate. How do you know those names?" "I know Dr. Thompson paid you $400,000 in Phoenix on July 15th, Rose continued calmly. "Judge Hayes transferred $600,000 in Denver on March 3rd. CEO Foster gave you $200,000 in Seattle on January 1st. "That's impossible. You're some confused old woman. I have copies of your operational files, Derek. Bank transfers, victim communications, safe house addresses in Tucson and Portland. I know about your backup identity as David Chin and your Nevada driver's license under Marcus Williams." David was breathing heavily now. "Nobody knows about those identities. The FBI does now. Agent Harris has been building a federal case while you were playing games." I watched my grandmother systematically destroy David's confidence with surgical precision. Every detail she revealed made him more desperate. "You can't prove anything," he screamed. "Your girlfriend Mitchell is sitting right here, Derek. She's very upset about the camera she helped you install. Would you like to speak with her? The sound that came through the phone was barely human. This is impossible. My system was perfect. No one could have. Your system had a fatal flaw, Rose interrupted. You underestimated a military intelligence analyst with nothing to lose. The coordinated silence of his other victims had spooked him. His income stream was completely cut off just as he needed money most for his European escape. Mitchell had already moved out of their shared apartment, but not before copying his travel schedules, behavioral patterns, and personal documents. She was now a key federal witness instead of an unknowing accomplice. Agent Harris is coordinating a multi-state operation as we speak, Rose continued. Be on the lookout. Issued under all your known identities. Your financial records are being seized through proper warrant procedures right now. I'll disappear, David threatened. I have plans you don't know about. Mexico, Derek? Using the Marcus Williams passport? The one Mitchell found in your bedroom drawer. David hung up. Within hours, he was attempting exactly what Rose predicted. He drove to the airport using his backup identity, trying to withdraw cash from a final hidden account. The financial alerts triggered immediately. Agent Harris tracked him to Terminal B, where David was desperately trying to board a red-eye flight to Cancun. He had $50,000 in cash, fake documents, and 3 encrypted phones. When they searched his luggage, they found evidence of 6 additional victims from previous years. FBI. Derek Masters, you're under arrest. The security cameras captured everything. David tackled to the ground, screaming about his rights while federal agents read him his charges. Rose, Mitchell, and I watched the arrest coverage on the evening news from my living room. Multi-state blackmail operation dismantled by federal agents, the anchor reported. Suspect apprehended at airport attempting to flee the country with false documents and evidence of multiple victims. How did you know he'd run to Mexico? I asked Rose. She smiled and pointed to her notebook. Pattern analysis, dear. His browser history showed vacation research for non-extradition countries. Mexico was his first choice, and Marcus Williams was his newest identity, least likely to be flagged. Mitchell shook her head in amazement. I lived with him for 8 months and never suspected anything. You figured out his entire operation in 3 days. Sometimes the old ways of doing intelligence work are the best ways, Rose said, closing her ancient laptop with satisfaction. As I watched David's mugshot flash across the screen, I realized my grandmother's investigation had been more thorough than the FBI's. She'd anticipated his every move, predicted his psychological breakdown, and coordinated a takedown that would have impressed her old Army commanders. Derek Masters was facing federal charges in 4 states. His perfect system had been completely destroyed by an 85-year-old woman with early-stage Alzheimer's who refused to underestimate herself. And somehow, that felt like the most beautiful justice of all. The federal courthouse was packed when Derek Masters faced sentencing 6 months later. Agent Harris had built an overwhelming case with evidence from all 4 victims, plus the 6 additional victims they'd discovered in his luggage. Mr. Masters, you are charged with interstate extortion, wire fraud, cybercrimes, and conspiracy, Judge Williams announced. Evidence shows a systematic criminal enterprise spanning 7 years and affecting 10 victims across 12 states. David's lawyer whispered frantically in his ear. 2 of his previous victims had committed suicide after he released their videos. The prosecutor was seeking life without parole, with the death penalty on the table. Your Honor, my client wishes to enter a guilty plea to avoid capital punishment. The courtroom buzzed as David stood, looking 20 years older than when I'd first met him. 35 years federal prison without possibility of parole, Judge Williams declared. All compromising materials to be destroyed under court order. Victim restitution of $2.8 million to be distributed proportionally. I felt Rose squeeze my hand as the gavel came down. Justice. But the best part? My identity remained confidential through federal victim protection. The media never knew the prosecutor he'd targeted was the same woman whose grandmother had brought him down. My murder trial had continued successfully while the FBI investigation ran parallel. I won that case, and 6 months later, I won the DA election by the largest margin in county history. Emily Carter's tough-on-crime approach and victim advocacy work has resonated with voters, the election coverage reported. They had no idea how personal that advocacy had become. Using my experience, I created the county's first comprehensive victim support program, with specialized units for blackmail and domestic manipulation cases. Rose consulted on every program development. The story had spread through law enforcement circles like wildfire. An 85-year-old with Alzheimer's outsmarting a federal criminal? It was legendary. But the most beautiful change happened at home. Rose had begun to give very useful inputs in my career. We planned cases together, analyzed threats together. Her sense of purpose seemed to slow the Alzheimer's progression noticeably. Her doctor was amazed at her cognitive improvements. Having meaningful work and feeling valued can significantly impact the disease's advancement, Dr. Gray explained. Rose's brain is staying more active because she knows she's needed. Our relationship completely transformed from caregiver and patient to mutual respect between two women who'd survived something incredible together. Mitchell became our closest family friend. She'd recovered from her trauma by channeling her anger into helping other victims. She now worked as a victim advocate, using her experience with manipulation to help others recognize the warning signs. I know what it feels like to be used, she'd tell clients. But I also know you can survive it and help others. The local VFW honored Rose with a special recognition ceremony for continued service to community in the face of personal challenges. The Army intelligence community celebrated her successful operation with a formal commendation. Staff Sergeant Rose Carter exemplifies the principle that once intelligence, always intelligence, the letter read. Rose became an advocate for utilizing elder expertise in law enforcement. She helped develop training programs for recognizing domestic manipulation patterns that agencies across the country started adopting. Then something unexpected happened. The story went viral. It started when Agent Harris mentioned the case in a law enforcement conference. Someone recorded it and posted the clip online. Within 48 hours, #Grandma Rose was trending across every platform. Military families began sharing similar stories of elder wisdom and capability. Adult children posted videos of their aging parents demonstrating skills everyone thought they'd lost. My dad has dementia but can still fix any engine, one viral video caption read. Never underestimate the power of muscle memory and lifetime experience. Alzheimer's advocacy groups embraced Rose's story to fight stereotypes about cognitive decline. Rose Carter proves that Alzheimer's doesn't have to erase who you are, the Alzheimer's Association posted. It doesn't eliminate decades of training, wisdom, and capability. Law enforcement agencies started consulting with Rose directly. She developed a victim identification training program that helped officers recognize patterns of systematic manipulation. Rose became a national speaker on domestic manipulation recognition, traveling to conferences and training seminars across the country. Predators count on isolation, she'd tell audiences. But family support systems are stronger than individual manipulation when we know what to look for. I established the Rose Carter Foundation for Victim Support, focusing on blackmail and systematic abuse cases. We provided legal resources, counseling, and investigative support for victims who couldn't afford help. A year later, we held Rose's 86th birthday party in our backyard. Dr. Thompson flew in from Phoenix, Judge Hayes from Denver, CEO Foster from Seattle, and Mitchell came with a homemade cake. All 4 women David had victimized were now successful, healed, and working together on victim advocacy initiatives. Dr. Thompson had started a support group at her hospital. Judge Hayes was implementing new domestic manipulation recognition training for family court staff. CEO Foster was funding technology to help victims document abuse safely. Rose, Dr. Thompson said, raising her glass, "You didn't just save our careers. You saved our lives. And you taught us how to fight back," Judge Hayes added. Rose smiled, looking around at the women she'd helped save. Her memory might be fading, but her impact was permanent. "I may forget what I had for breakfast," Rose said, her voice strong and clear, but I'll never forget that justice matters. And I'll never forget that age doesn't make you weak, experience makes you dangerous. I looked at my grandmother, this incredible woman who'd refused to let Alzheimer's define her limits. She'd taken her lifetime of skills and used them to destroy a criminal who thought he was untouchable. Grandma didn't just save us from one criminal, I told the group. She taught us that predators count on us feeling helpless and alone. But when we work together, when we use our experience and support each other, we're unstoppable. Rose Carter proved that criminal predators can be defeated by methodical intelligence work. That family support systems are stronger than individual manipulation. That justice is possible when victims refuse to stay silent. But most importantly, she proved that lifetime skill and wisdom can still be relied upon in spite of age and medical challenges. If Rose's incredible story inspired you, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Do you have an elderly family member whose wisdom has been underestimated? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about ordinary people achieving extraordinary justice. Rose Carter proved that experience never expires, it just gets more dangerous. Thanks for watching, and remember, heroes come in all ages.